Alright, what's up internet and YouTubers and friends and fans on Facebook? This is Danimal Daniel Jobber here, and we are currently live as I'm doing my first episode of the Jobbing Out with Danimal Daniel Jobber 205 Live and WWE Cruiserweight Report. As I attempt to become Duke of the Cruiserweights. This is going to be a unique episode, as I'm recovering almost 2 weeks of content. My original plan was to only cover up until before 205 Live tonight, but I decided to include 205 Live tonight and make the content fresh and relevant up to the date to make it more interesting, and I plan on doing regular episodes Tuesday night at 1 o'clock Eastern time after SmackDown Live and 205 Live airs every week. So that's my plan going forward. I expect it to be live, although at some point there may be some episodes that I record separately, and then it could be a little later than the 1 o'clock Eastern time, 10 o'clock Pacific. But that's the plan going forward, to do these episodes regularly. And this episode's got a lot of content, so I'm going to go through some of the earlier stuff quicker. And I'll use a little more detail on the last episode as I attempt to create some intrigue and interest in the Cruiserweight Division, which I think is taking off and catching on, although, as I'm noticing, it's still taking a while for the fans to warm up to some of the action and some of the characters. So anyways, we're going to start it off with not this week's Raw, but last week's Raw. There was a couple of good Cruiserweight matches there to get things started. First off, we have Akira Tozawa against Noam Dar. And that was a decent match. Akira Tozawa is being really pushed as one of the main baby faces right now. And he has a pretty good match over Noam Dar, mostly a glorified squash match, I would say. And he wins with his German suplex pinning combination. Gets a nice, cool, exciting 3 count. And then after that, the Brian Kendrick comes in and attacking. And he's been talking about the lessons he's been teaching Akira Tozawa. Lesson 1, Lesson 2, I'm not going to go over those, he does mention them. And then the attack this time is Lesson 3, where basically he's saying, watch your back, because you never know what's going to happen. Anyways, he gives him a good beat-down attack, and kind of creates the tension in this feud that's going to be going on for the next little while. Not a bad match, good way to get the Cruiserweight started on the show, and of course to really push Akira Tozawa, and just get Brian Kendrick back in the fray because he's a very important antagonist in the heels of the Cruiserweight division. There is another match on Raw, and that is Jack Gallagher teaming with TJ Perkins, TJP. And he's against Neville and Tony Nese. They are a pretty good action-packed team. Of course, Neville is, before the match, Neville's talking with Tony Nese, and he's saying, the point of this match is for us to hurt Jack Gallagher, because, of course, they have the Cruiserweight title match set against Jack Gallagher at the Fastlane pay-per-view the next week. And, of course, Tony Nese says, I understand that's your purpose. My purpose is to do whatever is important for Tony Nese, the premier athlete. And so he basically gives Neville a snub, which I imagine is probably going to happen a lot, because Neville thinks his popularity among the bad guys in the division is a little more than it actually is. So anyways, it was a pretty decent match. At some point, Neville's thrown out of the ring, and Jack Gallagher ends up tapping out Tony Nese with a cool new submission hold that I hadn't seen yet. So I'll keep an eye on that and see, if he uses that more. But anyways, it's a pretty basic match, but then, of course, just to get the baby faces is a little bit of a pop. And, of course, Gallagher and TJ Perkins, 2 very popular baby faces, get the win. Nothing too exciting. And that was it for the week for Raw. And, of course, the next night was the last episode before tonight of 205 Live. And right off the bat, we have Noam Dar and Lince Dorado, in one of his earlier matches in the division as he's coming on. Versus Lince Dorado. Noam Dar is coming on, basically. of course, they're building a story with Alicia Fox too, as I'll get into. And as Lince Dorado enters the ring, I wasn't totally impressed with the way his costume was looking. He basically is fairly stripped down, looking fairly skinny, and his mask had that almost like a horse's mane on top, making it look like he was like a horse's head. I really wasn't impressed with his mask in this match. I hope he doesn't continue to use that, because he really didn't look impressive in the way Lince Dorado has in some of his past matches. Anyways, as Noam Dar enters the ring, getting ready to face Lince Dorado, out comes a delivery guy with some flowers, and he goes in, and Noam Dar is surprised, not really paying attention, and the delivery man brings the flowers to Alicia Fox, and it doesn't really not much really explanation. I think the announcers kind of let on that it must have been Noam Dar delivering flowers to his girlfriend. Anyways, they have the match. Dorado gets a near fall, the somersault off the ropes easily. Just a note that Lince Dorado is famous for using a shooting star press. As we see him going forward, we'll see how often he uses that. Anyways, he does a somersault off the ropes into a spring stunner. Doesn't get the fall though, and then later on he ends up going from the top rope and missing. And then Dar hits with a rough kick to the shin, vicious kick to the side of Dorado's head, and gets the 3 count. Pretty much more of a squash match than anything. Lince Dorado not too unimpressive, but definitely not looking like he was going to really challenge Noam Dar. But while this match is going on, they flash back to Rich Swann, who's watching the monitor with a real smug look on his face as the flowers are being delivered. Basically, you can kind of tell what's happening. You expect that it was actually Rich Swann that delivered the flowers to Alicia Fox. So they're kind of looks like they're building towards another boyfriend change with Alicia Fox, and I'll get into that more a little later on in the video. But anyways, a little bit of intrigue, creating a storyline early on in the show. Anyways, later on, the next match we have an interview. Austin Aries, as we know, is getting ready to return to the ring. He's cleared, so he's on his last days as an announcer / interviewer. But anyways, he's interviewing Akira Tozawa, who of course has his feud with Brian Kendrick ever since he turned down Brian Kendrick's offer to be his protege, because he doesn't like him. And Brian Kendrick, all bent out of shape, and is starting to teach him these lessons, as he was doing on Raw. So anyways, while he's interviewing him, Tozawa says he wants to fight right now, even because of all these lessons he's teaching him, and starts doing his battle chant, ha, 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 ha. And of course, the crowd always gets kind of into it. It's kind of his way of makes him stand out a lot. It really makes him a very intriguing character. Anyways, Kendrick comes out, and as Akira Tozawa tries to talk to him, Kendrick keeps cutting him off and being really arrogant on the microphone, and asks him what makes him think he's going to fight on his terms, on Tozawa's terms. And of course, he even ends up he's basically saying that he's going to regret Tozawa turning down all his years of experience in the mentorship. And he, of course, insults Tozawa and then insults the Minnesota crowd, basically saying that lesson 4 is you need to learn English if you want to talk to me, just like these Minnesotans who struggle with English. You struggle with it as well. And, of course, the crowd gets the usual reaction when they're being insulted. Anyways, of course, Kendrick leaves the ring, refusing to fight, just trying to create this tension. And, of course, Tozawa was upset that he doesn't get his chance to fight Kendrick, and the segment ends. Then we have a 6-man tag team, which was actually a surprising match. We have Tony Nese, Drew Gulak, and Arya Daivari. Typically, when these 3 guys are together, it's a squash match, or at least a match putting over 3 baby faces. And that's what made this match unique. And they're against T.J. Perkins, Mustafa Ali, and Cedric Alexander. 3 very popular baby faces who are used to getting a push in this kind of a match, or getting the victory. And I just want to make a note that Nese, early on in this match, is doing his usual thing. He does this arm flex, where he's doing a elbow bent arm flex, showing off his really ripped arms. He's quite impressive when you actually watch him. Definitely lives up to the name, the premier athlete, even though he's his style is more bruiserweight than kind of like Drew Gulak than most of the other cruiserweights. But anyways, pretty good performance early on by Perkins, doing his usual high-flying, high-speed action. And then Mustafa Ali does a huge moonsault off the top rope into outside the ring. I guess I didn't make a note of who he actually landed on. But anyways, the crowd got a pretty good pop over this high-flying move by Mustafa Ali, who's coming on as a babyface, getting some excitement. Gulak later on puts Perkins in his own version of the gory special, which I thought was kind of interesting, basically paying tribute to an older wrestler. And anyways, later a flying suicide moonsault by Cedric Alexander over the top rope onto Gulak and Daivari. Another exciting pop from the crowd. Very exciting, high-flying match this was. Very entertaining. But surprisingly enough, it ends up in a heel victory when the referee kind of takes a little longer than usual, forcing Alexander, who's in double teaming, out of the ring. Kind of delays things and acts as a distraction. And then Gulak comes from behind and knocks Perkins off the top rope with a really vicious hit. And then while that's happening, Tony Nese bounces off the rope and into the corner, hitting Cedric Alexander off the apron with his elbow, and then bounces off again and goes into Perkins with his flying knee move he calls the flying Nese, and basically knocks him senseless, pins Perkins for a 3 count victory. Pretty unusual to see, such a controversial and surprising heel victory in a match like that. I honestly expected it was going to go the way of the babyfaces, and they looked like they were going to take the match until the ref kind of caused a little bit of delay there. So yeah, surprising, frustrating loss for Perkins, Cedric Alexander, and Mustafa Ali. Just an interesting match. Nothing too impressive or anything. And after that, Neville comes into the ring to give his State of the 205 Live address, and basically making fun of state of the league addresses in various sports and that sort of thing. So in that he says he changed the landscape of 205 Live, yet I've received nothing but resentment from everybody. You'd rather cheer for a sideshow like Jack Gallagher. You, the WWE Universe, who's to blame for the fact that Gallagher thinks he's on my level, and therefore responsible for his fate. This Sunday at Fastlane, I will obliterate Jack. He will have an execution. Of course, creating tension for the big championship match at Fastlane. At this point, though, Jack Gallagher comes out in his suit, carrying his trusty umbrella, and the crowd is really behind him, chanting, Jack, Jack, Jack. He's easily one of the most over of the cruiserweights. And I guess he should be. He's getting the push to the championship match. And I think he's just the most entertaining of the baby faces, really, with his cool style. But as they're all chanting, and he comes out telling Neville he's having a meltdown and asking if it'd make him feel better if he had him some tea and biscuits. Of course, Neville and Gallagher are both British, and kind of making fun of his British, but not so British roots. Not so sophisticated as Gallagher is. Neville warns and threatens him that if he keeps pushing him, he'll make an example of him tonight, and he won't wait till Fastlane. Neville says it's his ring, and of course Jack says he disagrees because the ring belongs to all these people out there, getting the crowd excited that he's basically giving them the credit for 205 Live, and the crowd all cheers, and Jack says, it's about time you leave, and then he attacks Neville, and this is the most impressive part, because Jack Gallagher is doing these drop kicks, like, wow, just really brought me back to the time of when I used to pop for baby faces, doing vicious drop kicks and cleaning house back in the 80s. Very, very impressive array of drop kicks. All he does go to for his in-corner drop kick, and at that point, Neville ducks out and gets out of the ring. But then Jack Gallagher starts chasing Neville and ends up drop kicking him right over the barricade. Just a great way to hype up the match and get people ready for the championship match at Fastlane. Of course, the show ends with the crowd all cheering, and with Jack Gallagher's great attack on the champion Neville. So I thought it was a great way to end the show, great way to build support for the match. But anyway, that's the end of 205 Live. Nothing too impressive, mostly just building towards the match at Fastlane. There was main event before that. The second match was just a quick match between Grand Metalik and Arya Daivari. And this was Gran Metalik's apparently main roster cruiserweight debut. I thought I had seen him on one of the shows before, but I guess this was his debut. And Arya Daivari is once again just there to be the enhancement talent, basically to put him over. And Gran Metalik wins pretty easy. Pretty energetic performance though, and of course he does his Metalik driver, which is a combination of the what did I say? It was the Samoan driver, but it's kind of like an attitude adjustment, but he slams the opponent between his legs and hangs onto his leg for the pinning combination instead of what John Cena does. But anyways, it was a good match. Nothing too exciting. Just it goes on a little longer because it's main event, and there's only 2 matches, and the second match tends to be the main event, which is supposed to be the more entertaining back and forth match. But it's mostly just to show off the skills of Gran Metalik and establish him on the roster. And then that leads us into Fastlane, and there was 2 matches on the card. The first one was on the pre-show, and this was the one they were building with Akira Tozawa and the Brian Kendrick feud. They have Akira Tozawa teaming with Rich Swann against Brian Kendrick and Noam Dar, and with Alicia Fox, of course. And they didn't really make a touch on this, but it's kind of fitting that it's Rich Swann and Noam Dar, because I think they're building something with Alicia Fox in that feud. But anyways, most of the match was about a Tozawa versus Kendrick feud. It was a good entertaining match, good kickoff match. Crowd was as into it as you can be with a kickoff match. Rich Swann wins the match for his team with his Phoenix Splash. Nothing too special, as most people predicted. The baby faces win just to make the crowd feel good as they file into the arena. And then, of course, brings us to the excuse me, just need a quick sip here. To the main card match, which, of course, is the Cruiserweight title match. Jack Gallagher versus Neville. It was a pretty good match. It was probably one of the matches of the night, really. Jack Gallagher putting on his good performance. Neville being a good character heel and doing a lot of his athletic stuff as well. Although later on in the match, I didn't find it as entertaining, because I found that they were relying a lot on Jack Gallagher's headbutts. And yeah, he's got this tough head, and he does these exciting headbutts, but I don't know, well, one, of course, they have to sell it really well, because obviously they can't do anything that would risk serious concussions. Basically, it's a lot of performance involved in these headbutts. Although it was pretty well done, pretty convincing. The match, though, was a little slower than I think some people would have hoped. And, of course, the fact that it came right after a couple of filler matches that really weren't all that interesting, the crowd wasn't as interested in it as they could have been. But, and of course, near the end, or at the end, basically, Gallagher's headbutts backfire on him, as he does a headbutt in the corner, and Neville kind of pretends that he's out cold in the corner, and when Jack Gallagher comes in, he catches him by surprise, knocks Gallagher onto the ground, and, surprising everybody, I guess, does his first red arrow since he turned heel, and wins with a 3 count on the red arrow, retaining the title. So it was one of the more entertaining matches of the night, although it was a little bit of a slower match than people were looking for at that point. And I was still pretty tired and frustrated after a half hour of filler matches, so I didn't find it as entertaining as I would have if it had been a little more high-flying or I'd come at a better time in the card. But anyway, it was a pretty good showing for the Cruiserweights, and of course Jack Gallagher being one of the most over, maybe the most over babyface in the division right now. He did a pretty good job of representing the division, and of course Neville. I mean, what can you say about Neville? He just has that monster heel look and feel, and he just comes across as a guy that's going to be extremely tough to take the title off of. And he's just very antagonizing. He's doing a really good job as a heel. I couldn't have envisioned Neville being such a good heel when he was the man that gravity forgot. So kudos to WWE for the way they, and Neville, for the way they reinvented him and have him come back as the king of the Cruiserweights. Anyways, and of course after that he gets interviewed by Austin Aries again, once again still leading to his expected in-ring return. And Austin Aries, or Neville starts acting pretty rude to Austin Aries. And Austin Aries They're basically treating him like he's a low interviewer and, not a very good one. And then Austin Aries finally says, I have one more question for you. I just want to do my job. I got one more question for you. And it's not as much as a question as it is a statement. And then he just, out of the blue, whacks Neville in the head with the microphone, dropping him like a rock. And there's a crowd popping, and they're all expecting Austin Aries to attack Neville at some point and build towards a match at WrestleMania. Just drops him, and then, of course, Austin Aries shows off as the crowd cheers, and Neville, totally taken off guard, rolls out of the ring and gets the heck out of there. So basically showing, I guess after Austin Aries hits him in the head, he rips off his shirt and basically shows, I'm ready to return to the ring, pretty much showing that he's healed and ready to go. And he issues a challenge to Neville, silently, I guess, in a sense, with that action. And it's, of course, leading to that match in WrestleMania, as I said. So anyways, that was how 205 Live represented how Fastlane represented the Cruiserweights. And now that leads us into tonight's 205 Live show, which I'm going to go into a little more detail because that was a pretty good show. And I think it kind of highlights what the Cruiserweight division is all about. So anyways, the show kicks off with Austin Aries coming to the ring. And, of course, the announcers are referring to him as A-Double, and they're saying how they're sad he's leaving the announcing booth. They're going to miss him. But he's ready to return to in-ring action and make his debut on 205 Live. So anyways, Austin Aries comes out and says he's interviewing his greatest person to interview, himself. I mean, who hasn't dreamed about interviewing themselves? Every man's dream. And he asks questions like, why did you punch Neville? And, of course, his answer is, because I could. Basically flexing his muscles as he believes he's the top athlete in the division as well. Of course, that's where the tension between him and Neville is going to get so great leading into WrestleMania. And he says, you want to make a statement? Find the toughest guy and punch him right in the face. And, of course, that's kind of what he did to make his statement and really elevate himself to the top of the roster. And he said, I want to make this perfectly clear for everybody. With that right hand to Neville's face last night, Austin Aries, expert journalist, is no more. Austin Aries, in-ring expert, is here on 205 Live. And with that, out comes Neville to confront him, and Neville asks him why he thinks he's on his level. And Austin replies that he's not on his level, he's a level above him. And then Neville says, there's only one level around here, and that's Neville level. And you're not even close. And, of course, they go back and forth. There was a great promo off between Neville and Austin Aries. Neville says Austin's not worthy of a fight with him because he has not earned it. And he says there's a locker room full of talent, though, that'd be happy to fight Austin. So he doesn't have to worry about it. He's got the whole roster against Austin Aries. And he says that they all have, a grudge against him because of the fact that he's been announcing. And it's been, and he insults him, saying that he's been, actually later on he insults him. I'll get into that after. But anyways, it says basically he doesn't have to, and Austin Aries says, I'll go through anybody in the roster, basically issuing an open challenge and basically inviting anybody on that night to face him later on. So, very entertaining segment to really get Austin Aries back into the picture and to set up a match later on with somebody we don't know at this point yet. So anyways, then they have a backstage segment with Rich Swann and Jack Gallagher having a talk, and in comes Noam Dar bragging about Alicia Fox and saying, hey, speaking, and of course they ask him how Alicia Fox is, and he goes, she's fine, but speaking of that, did you happen to see the flowers she was given last night? And then of course Rich Swann gets that look on his face and goes, why? Why are you curious? Didn't you send the flowers? And of course, which of course is ironic because he was the one staring smugly at the monitor when they were delivered. And Dar says, oh, of course I sent the flowers. I just wanted to see if you were checking, and taking notes. Because if you do what I do, you may one of these days have a girl as lovely as Alicia Fox. And that was a good way to get the match going, because they're about to face him and his partner, Arya Daivari. But anyways, especially funny considering, like I said, the Rich Swann is probably the one who sent the flowers and is probably building to another girlfriend swap. And it's kind of an interesting story how they're maybe Alicia Fox going to start playing musical cruiserweight boyfriends as we move around from cruiserweight to cruiserweight. Really a good use of Alicia Fox. Really, she's had a great storied career, and she's near the end of it anyways. Why not have her be involved in such an entertaining story and helping to elevate the cruiserweights? Just an interesting side story. And it was after this, Noam Dar leaves, and Jack Gallagher to talk with Rich Swann about basically how he's learning to do hip-hop dance, of course. So yeah, just an entertaining little segment leading into the match between Dar and Ariya Daivari. So anyways, Noam Dar comes out to the ring with Alicia Fox. Oh, looks like my YouTube or my Facebook might end up losing the feed here from Facebook. I do apologize if we do. I have to keep an eye on that. Anyways, against Jack Gallagher and Rich Swann. Great entrance by Rich Swann as usual, doing his usual dance moves and everything, showing him off. The crowd really wasn't really into it though. But when Jack Gallagher comes in, he got the biggest pop. Then going Jack, 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 Jack. Actually, I do apologize, YouTube. I'm gonna have to cut this off because, Facebook. I'm gonna have to cut this off because I don't think I have enough battery to finish this segment. So I do apologize if anybody checks this out later. I'm just about to finish off the description of the last couple matches. Maybe I'll do a little video just rehashing the 205 live episode separately. So I'm going to let the Facebook audience go here. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Anybody who checks us out on Facebook. And I'm just going to make sure it posts so it doesn't go to waste. Good. Anyways, this, as I said, Jack Gallagher is the most over, getting Jack, 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 Jack. And it's really, but as far as that, except for the entrances, really the match was fairly, the crowd's fairly lukewarm to the whole show, and not a lot of excitement except for cheering for Jack Gallagher. So early on, Daivari and Dar are working over Rich Swann, and really the crowd's starting to get a little bit going. We want Jack, we want Jack. Once again, showing how they just Jack Gallagher seems to be the one that they want to see of the whole division. Strange how and Rich Swann, being such an entertaining, dancey, fun kind of high energy guy, isn't anywhere near as over as Jack Gallagher. But anyways, the announcers also mentioned Ariya's older brother Sean, who's a former WWE superstar. Just a side note, but that he of course they say Ariya wants to make his own name. Anyway, Swann does finally make a hot tag to Jack Gallagher, who comes in, and the crowd pops. Basically, as the Extraordinary Gentleman comes in on fire. Two beautiful drop kicks, as I was saying. He's really sharp with his drop kicks. He does his move where he perches his body upside down in the corner, basically having his body erect up in the air. A number of superstars are actually using this right now to kind of show off. Kind of a cool show-off move to show off the musculature and strength of the performers. Anyways, just an aside there. Where was I now? Anyways, a few minutes later, the two guys are double teaming Jack Gallagher, and he ends up tagging in Rich Swann. And then Gallagher hits one of his vicious headbutts on Daivari, and then throws him in the corner, or Daivari, stumbles into the corner, and then Jack Gallagher hits his corner drop kick, and Daivari flops out of the ring, leaving Noam Dar by himself, and then Rich Swann hits his finisher, the Phoenix Splash from the top rope, and gets the 3 count on Noam Dar. Pretty good entertaining tag team match between the two teams. So, nothing too remarkable other than that. But anyways, as Swann and Gallagher leaving the ring, you see the delivery man come by with a heart-shaped box of candy, and he goes towards the ring, and as Noam Dar is kind of being consoled by Alicia Fox, he gets this strange look of surprise on his face as this box of candies is being delivered, and he stops him and says, "Stop right there," basically, and he goes over and takes the candy from the delivery guy and says, "Get out of here!" Basically doing a pretty good heel, defensive like though. And then he goes and he gives the box of candy to Alicia like he had ordered them himself, and acts all happy, and she acts all happy and loving as they embrace and leave the ring together. And of course, you can kind of see that what's actually happening is that the candy once again was sent by somebody else, probably Rich Swann, and you just watch Noam Dar squirm and struggle as he tries to keep convincing Alicia Fox that he's the one doing all this sweet stuff. Very kind of an entertaining little story going on there as they build up towards this inevitable next change of boyfriends for Alicia Fox. So anyways, that's the end of that one. And then later on, as we're going to the break, or the next segment, we found out that Tony Nese has been the one who answered Austin Aries' open challenge, and that we'll be seeing him as Austin Aries' debut match later on in the show. Anyways, then we go to a quick interview with Brian Kendrick, and he's promised he'll give us the answer to whether Akira Tozawa will get a fight against him. And Brian Kendrick says, I was tempted to say no, but I decided we'll do it. And that he's going to have a fight against Akira Tozawa tonight. Or Brian Kendrick. Akira Tozawa is going to have a fight against Brian Kendrick tonight. So anyways, this leads into main event. Sounds like it. I think not. Of course, out comes Akira Tozawa, and the announcer announces him, and he comes out, all ready for his big match against the Brian Kendrick. And then, of course, the announcer announces his opponent, the Brian Kendrick. And Kendrick comes out. But instead of going into the ring, he goes over to the microphone and he says, I'm a man of my word, and I promise that Akira Tozawa will have a match against Brian Kendrick. And so he shall. I'd like to introduce Brian Kendrick. He spelled his name with a Y instead of an I. So I want to introduce a Brian Kendrick. And out comes another Brian Kendrick with a beard, small beard. Basically an amusing little development. Not something you really expected. And then, of course, Kendrick says, he comes out, Kendrick says, and let that be lesson number 6. Always read the fine print. He's teaching him these lessons. And as, of course, Corey Graves smugly says, you can't pay for an education like that. Anyways, Tozawa proceeds to kick the crap out of a Brian Kendrick with a Y. And he's taunting Brian Kendrick with his ha, 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 ha. And, of course, he wins the squash match fairly quickly with his German suplex pin combo. And after the match, he has this cold, icy stare between him and the Brian Kendrick. And then, of course, Kendrick, finally, after a few seconds, waves bye-bye and goes out of the barricade and walks away, creating that tension for that feud and building the next level of the feud between him and Akira Tozawa. Anyways, as we get to the final part of the show, we have a promo interview from Champion Neville, now saying that Austin Aries is going to regret his decision to come back into the ring, and starts insulting Aries by saying how the audience has been subject to his horrible announcing and poor humor and taunting, and that Tony Nese won't be a walk in the park for him. But that's not the only big story, because the fact that there's a whole locker room of people who all want what he has, the Cruiserweight title. And of course, he makes a tease that we're going to find out who's going to be, only one can face me at WrestleMania, and we're going to find out who that is next week. So they're probably going to have some form of a match that is going to decide the number one contender the next week on 205 Live. So that should be something to look forward to for next week's show. Anyways, then we have our main event, sort of. Austin Aries, the 205 in-ring debut against the premier athlete, Tony Nese. Actually, it was a surprisingly good match. For a guy that hasn't always been one of the top heels, he has a pretty good performance against Austin Aries, and it really lives up to a main event kind of status for this show anyways. Anyway, surprisingly, Austin Aries does not get a lot of pop from the crowd. I really thought he would get a little more excitement, with his history, in the indie scene before he became the WWE and NXT. But yeah, the crowd is they're just warming up to him for some reason. Yeah, at least the crowd in that arena. It's really surprising. And of course, they're cold for Tony Nese's entrance as well. And he starts off using his power and showing off his muscular bent elbow flex as always. Austin then shows off his in-ring skill and his arrogant, confident attitude. A couple of really nice moves, and then he almost does what what's his name? Sorry, I can't remember the name. The Prince Pretty. Ah, darn it. Does his moves in NXT, and of course doesn't do as much in the main roster. But Tyler Breeze, kind of like he does on the top rope, just for a second, just to show off his how overconfident he is in the match, or confident and a little bit arrogant. And he gets back into the ring and continues the match. Then he tries to psych out Aries by telling him, "You don't belong in 205 Live," but Austin Aries ignores it and goes back to the fight. The two exchange moves, and Nice attempts to get the better of Aries by hitting a gutbuster. Tries to go for the pin, able to get the 3 count. Pretty quick pin for the most part in that match. And then they exchange moves, and then Nice attempts to get the better of Aries again by... before that, there basically is a big exchange of brutality and power. Just a lot of back and forth moves between the two of them. And then Tony Nese attempts to get the better by hitting a super kick outside the ring on Aries. And throws him back in the ring, tries to get the pin. Once again, Aries kicks out. Aries comes back with a flurry of moves, including 2 vicious clotheslines. Very impressive. But then Tony Nese counters with a lifting sit-out powerbomb, kind of like Roman Reigns does, where he picks him up with his power and then slams him down into that sit-out powerbomb. Tries for the 3 count again. Once again, Austin Aries kicks out. Finally, Austin Aries comes back again, sending Nice from the ring. And then he knocks him out of the ring. And he does his heat-seeking missile suicide dive. And that's probably gets a bit of a gasp from the crowd. And then he throws him back in the ring and hits his roaring elbow off the top rope, his finisher, and gets the 3 count victory. Surprisingly good back and forth match. Not a bad main event. And a pretty good debut for Austin Aries on 205 Live. Pretty entertaining. 2 powerful cruiserweights going at it. Crowd really was silent for the whole match, though. Didn't really seem to react much at all, except for a quick gasp of appreciation during Austin Aries' heat-seeking missile. Still warming up to some of these guys, really, and to the cruiserweights. Almost like, whatever, let's get it over with. It's a shame, because these guys are putting on a pretty good show, and there's a story to every match, which, most of the matches anyways, which, at least, and there's a relationship between the characters, which I've always said is a really good idea, in building a good show in wrestling. But anyways, the show ends with Austin Aries showing off, celebrating his victory. Not a lot of reaction from the crowd. It's too bad. I'm hoping that see more out of some of the other crowds, but this one really wasn't into it at all, so... Anyways, the show is characteristic, though, of the Cruiserweight Division and 205 Live in general. Decent story writing, ongoing stories, a little bit of humor, intrigue, in who's going to win and what's going to happen in the matches and the next show. They're always building from show to show. We always want to see how the story's progressing, but they're simple, yet ongoing. A bit of development on each show. What more can you ask in wrestling storytelling? So I'm hoping the fans will really appreciate what they're trying to do with the show, because the wrestling's good. And there's a story, and it's intriguing, and it builds, and there's a little bit of humor. Really, that's what wrestling should be. It's just a matter of the people connecting with the characters and their relationships with each other, and really just growing with them, I think. I'm hoping that's the case, and we'll see more of that development. I think in time, more fans will come to appreciate this. And like I said, it's always got direction and progression. And that's not something you always see on the main roster, except maybe on SmackDown, which is... considered to be one of the best shows, and to some extent NXT, although NXT's hasn't been as entertaining in the last month since a lot of their top talent was called up to the main roster. So this is, I think, one of the more entertaining shows of the week. I've been enjoying 205 Live a lot lately, so I'm looking forward to continuing to do these reviews of the shows and trying to keep you guys up to date for those who don't get to watch it. And if you're intrigued by any of this and you haven't watched the show, start checking it out. It's really worth it. As always, it's part of the WWE Network, which is well worth the $11.99 per month in Canada. 24/7 content, tons of virtually everything you possibly want to watch online. All the pay-per-views and WrestleManias and Raws and SmackDowns, anything you could ever want to watch in the history of WWE. It's got tons of WCW content, just ridiculous amounts of content. You couldn't really watch all the content in years if you were to watch it back to back. anything you want to check out, it's all there for you on the network. So easily worth $11.99 a month. It's just a no-brainer. Anybody who would consider stealing it, it's unfortunate because really, as I said, this is the best thing to happen to wrestling since Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, as far as I'm concerned. Vince has got a really good thing going, and I'm hoping it continues and grows, and that we'll see more and more of it. And of course, if you're American watching this, you can get it for $11.99 a month, and you can enjoy a free month of programming, which will cover right through WrestleMania. So basically, people that are paying $55, $60 a month for WrestleMania, you get to watch for $9.99. That isn't enough of a reason to get the network and to try it out for a month and just see what kind of content is available and what you like and everything. I don't know what it is. Support it. It's a great thing. It's created an ability for even a casual fan to get so deep into wrestling and understand so much. I mean, I just can't say enough of the WWE Network and how great it is. And then I'm going to wrap it up with that. Again, my name is Danimal Jobber. I'm want to be doing this regularly, covering the cruiserweights. As I said, I'm going to be doing this. My plan is Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Pacific on a regular basis, live, as long as it keeps going well. At some point, I might do some episodes that are taped ahead of time. Maybe I might put them up a little later than that. But either way, Tuesday night's going to be when I'm going to be doing these. I'm hoping you'll follow me at Daniel Jobber on Twitter. Of course, if you like this video on YouTube, of course, I'm hoping you'll give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave your comments on what you think and what you think of the Cruiserweight Division, what you like, don't like. I'm also hoping you'll check me out on Instagram under Daniel Jobber. I put lots of cool short videos, especially, and skits and things, and some cool pictures and things that when I come up with them. Also, of course, you can send me an email at danimaljobber@gmail.com. And of course, you can check me out on this YouTube channel which is, assuming you're watching it, Daniel Jobber. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you'll check me out again next week. Next week's video should be a little shorter and more to the point. So, be a little more focused, I think, but it'll be a little less content to cover. But I hope that you enjoyed this introductory video and that I've intrigued you enough about the Cruiserweights to check me out again next week. You have a great night. Jobber out.